Good morning, Grindstone Church. This is Brian, and this is our devotion for today. It is Wednesday, April the 8th. We are 4 days away from Easter Sunday, you guys, and we're just really excited for the Easter season that's not just coming ahead, but the Easter season that's here. It doesn't really feel like Easter yet, so these devotionals are an attempt to help us to get our hearts going, get our heads going for the Easter Sunday that's just a few days away. Well, I hope that you guys have been having a great week. Hope that you're doing okay with everything that you're doing with work, with the adjustments you've been making in your life. Hope everybody's staying healthy and able to manage everything that's in front of you. Maybe it's a bunch of curveballs that you have every day. Maybe it's just managing family stuff. But please know that we're thinking about you guys, praying for you guys every day at this time and at this season that we're all riding through together. Today's devotional takes us back to the Garden of Gethsemane with Jesus, where we were yesterday in Matthew's Gospel. As I was talking about Jesus in the garden yesterday, we've arrived on this scene where Jesus' enemies have arrived and they've met him in the middle of the night. They were led by one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was part of his inner circle of his followers. And Judas was paid off, essentially, by these religious authorities so that they could find out the location of where Jesus was so that they could arrest him. The Jewish leaders wanted Jesus dead because he threatened their authority, because they disagreed with him on so many levels with so many things. But they didn't want to actually be responsible for killing Jesus themselves. It was contrary to God's law for them within their own religious system to kill somebody. So instead, they were trying to get Jesus sentenced and executed by their local Roman authorities who were in control of things politically. So that's why they tried to enlist the help of Pontius Pilate as we see the story unfold. So our passage for today is from Matthew chapter 26, verses 47 to 56. It says, "While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. 'The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him.' Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, 'Greetings, Rabbi,' and kissed him. Jesus replied, 'Do what you came for, friend.' Then the men stepped forward, seized Jesus, and arrested him. With that, one of Jesus' companions reached for his sword, drew it out, and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. 'Put your sword back in its place,' Jesus said to him, 'for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at disposal more than 12 legions of angels? How then would the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen in this way?'" That's important to remember. In that hour, Jesus said to the crowd, "Am I leading a rebellion that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I sat in the temple courts teaching. You did not arrest me. But this has all taken place that the writings of the prophets might be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him and fled. This is a very interesting scene that's unfolding in front of us when we read this passage today. If you really think about it from the disciples' point of view, from his followers' point of view, the people who are closest to them, this must have been absolutely heartbreaking and difficult for them to be seeing things unravel for Jesus right in front of them. And yet Jesus is there, and he's very quick to remind them, twice actually, that these things were happening in a way where he was completely aware that it was happening. And he reminds them twice that this is part of a plan that it was set in place a long time ago by God in order to send his son to be a sacrifice to deal with humanity's sin problem. And he says it twice. He says this is a matter of fulfillment. This is not something that you guys can control. This is not something that's a surprise to me. This is a matter of things that have long been prophesied and foretold. Under all of these reasons, this is why this is going to come to pass. This is all part of the Father's plan to save humanity. And so now we come to a place in Jesus' life where there's a shift in the story as it happens in front of us. And that shift is this. For the first time in the gospel narratives, we see that Jesus is alone. He's facing his execution completely alone. He is walking the rest of the road to Calvary by himself. The way to the cross is one where he's completely by himself. You know, later on in the Bible, as it looks back on Jesus' life, one of the things that's said about him is that he faced every kind of weakness and difficulty and pain that we did. And because of that, he is able to empathize with us in our weakness. Now think about that for a second. You might be at a time right now where you are feeling like you're completely alone. Maybe it's a matter of being physically alone. You're kind of by yourself. You're kind of isolated and stuck by yourself. You kind of feel like you're off the radar and kind of just out of reach from all the people that you care about right now. Maybe you feel like you're emotionally or mentally alone right now. You don't feel like there's anyone who really understands you or really anyone who connects with you or really truly cares about you for who you are in your own self right now. Well, I just want to remind you as we've read this story today that you guys have an ally in Jesus who knows what it's like to be deserted. He knows what it's like to be disappointed by your friends and by those who care about you. He knows what it's like to face anxiety and pain and desertion of the highest and the harshest degrees. That's why the song that I have paired with today's devotional today, it's called Jerusalem by City of Light. And it's chosen because it helps us to not be desensitized to this Easter story. You know, so often it's just easy for us to forget how much Jesus suffered for us and how much he gave to save us. And not only does it rob us of how we can appreciate everything that he's done for us, but on a practical level, on an application level for us, it kind of causes us to forget to reach for him when we go through times of need and when we go through times of difficulty. I kind of compare it to a few years ago when there was one of my closest friends. He died, and so our friendship wasn't around anymore. So one of the things that I realized on the other side of that is I really took for granted our friendship, and I really took for granted how much I appreciated him and my relationship with him as a really close friend. But what I also lost was just the ability to reach out for him and to talk to him and to see how things are going and to connect with him and just to enjoy him as somebody who is a great friend of mine. When we kind of miss that aspect of appreciation, it also tends to cut off the communication and how we reach out for somebody in that way too. That's why on the road to Calvary today, that's part of the activity that we have for kids. That's why the emblem, the short thing that we have kids to work on, is a rooster. Because it symbolizes this moment, symbolizes this time in Jesus' life when he was completely denied by his friends, when he was in a period of extreme isolation and abandonment, as he had to turn the corner on the rest of his journey on the road to Calvary all by himself. He was completely alone, and that's what this symbolizes as we have this on the activity that we have for today. And so I just want to help you at this time just to think about that today as we read this passage. Maybe take some time to kind of read this in a reflective manner. Just read it slowly, read it twice, and think through not just the implications that this has had for Jesus, but also how, as we approach this Easter season, think through in your own way, how do I express my appreciation that I have for Jesus and everything that he's done for me? And also, how quick am I to reach out to him and to reach out for him as a Savior who is here to help me and to hear me and to be with me each step of the way in my life. And if you're coming to a place where maybe you think that this is something that you need to give more space to in your life, I just want to remind you, one of the things that Jesus is called is he's called our faithful high priest. And as you experience pain in this life, we have somebody who is like a faithful friend to us. And he is there every step of the way in every season, including difficult ones like this, to be there to be reached out to. If it's a season of unusual pain in your life, there is no pain that Jesus is not familiar with. And so he offers himself again, time and time again, for us to call out to him so that we can reach him in our time of need. And we can do that today, and I hope that you will. As pain arises, as need arises, just reach out for Jesus. He's there, and he will respond to the call that you have to him.